Good afternoon to all lovers of patchwork. Today we have a very interesting topic. Perhaps some one of you are already acquainted with this blog, but for me this is a new topic. One client asked me to sew a pillow of ties and sent a lot of ties. They are all so beautiful. Patterns and texture are all very different. And I was surprised by such a variety of fabrics. We can rip and cut them however we like, into squares or strips, and sew any quilt blocks that we have already sewed before, and it will turn out very beautiful. Today I will show you two pillows that I will sew of ties, and of course they all look extremely attractive. Let's get started. So we take a tie, turn it over, and find such a loop here. Usually they attach a label here. There is no such thing on this tie. Maybe it has already come off. Here is where we start to lose it from. Here is a back track. Usually we just cut it off. If we sew such a thread, in the majority of cases this seam is simply sewn with back and forth stitch. And now we begin to pull for this thread and almost pull it out completely. The thread is very strong. Be careful not to cut your hands. Once we pull out the thread, we open the tie. This loop should also be removed if it is also sewn by hand. Done! Let's see what we have inside. Inside is a filler and sometimes such a lining fabric. All this is easy to remove. There are no stitches and it's just put in here. Usually the filler is used as the hole. Let's take it out. We will need it later. I'll show you where and how it can be used. Now we turn inside out this corner and rip here this line on the large and on the small corners on the narrow side of the tie. Let's undo it here. It is also easy to undo the seam here because the line is very wide. But somehow this corner is always basted on a small line width. It's probably 1 millimeter, and this is the most difficult to cut this corner here. Everything else is very simple. You may not undo it and just cut it off with scissors for speed. But I will do undo it. Here we open the corner and did the same thing with this corner here. You can also see it here on the lining fabric. Well, when everything is done, let's look at what I got next. I cut fabric into strips. I will need such a triangle, squares, and such strips of fabric. I cut a triangle from a square with 5 by 5 inches sides. You see here how I cut out a square and cut it into 2 triangles. We need 4 such triangles. Pillow will consist of 4 large triangles. So, how are we going to sew it together? Let's take a triangle and start attaching strips to it. We take the first line, this one for example, and attach it to one and the other sides. So we attached one strip to one side of the triangle. The width of my strips is 2 inches. All are the same. Let's cut and even here. And now we need to cut off this side. Done. Now we should attach a new strip to this side. But before, I want to add one more small square to this strip. Let's cut this side a bit to even it. First, we will connect this strip with a 2 to 2 inch square. That is what we should finally get. So here they stitched the second side with this square. Here is now it turns out. Once again we take a ruler and cut along this line. We no longer need this strip. Now we take the next strip. Let's take this bright one. Look what a nice tie it used to be. We attach them on this side and on this side without squares. And look what we got when we added this bright strip. Please don't forget to iron every strip, because it is not cotton cloth. With cotton fabric, it's enough to smooth it with a fingernail. and everything is perfect. This fabric needs serious ironing. Now it remains to sew one more strip on this side, like this beautiful one, and this side. And from this side again we will add such a square. Well, here is our triangle. We will need 4 such triangles, and now let's have a look at how they will all lay down. Here I connected 4 triangles, and now we lay them in such a way. I will add more strips between them. There will be additional strips between them here. We take this strip and sew between these 2 triangles, cut off, and sew between these 2 triangles. So we sew together triangles by 2 with such dividing light strip. Now we only need to sew it all together and add 1 strip. In the center of the strip I inserted a red square, and that's how we are going to stitch it all together. Well, look what a top for a pillow I made. I think it's very nice and bright. There is nothing criminal if it waves like this. Firstly, you can iron it. And secondly, all this will certainly disappear after stitching. But of course, sewing from such ties is a bit difficult because all ties are cut on the bias, and we also have to cut on the bias, including the seams on the triangles here. It's okay. I think it all will be filled up and smoothed down after stitching. And now I will show you the second pillow, where I decided to use adhesive interlining. So, for the second pillow, I sewed strips into such rectangles and got 2 rectangles. I ripped my tie, ironed it, and glued adhesive interlining to it on the other side. Here you can see it here. I did it to stabilize this fabric because it's thin, cut on the bias, and goes waving. And you can already see here that the rectangles turn out to be much smoother and better, and the seams are all even. For the second pillow, I sewed 2 rectangles, and I also need a 4 to 4 inch square. Once again, I have 6 strips, and the strips all measure 2 inches. Thus, the width of this rectangle is equal to 2 side squares plus half an inch allowance. The length of these rectangles is equal to 3 squares and plus seam allowance. Here's what we are going to do next. Let's take a ruler, a knife, our rectangle, and bar soap to draw a line, half size of our square. Here is a mark. Then we do the same from this and that side. Done! Now we take a ruler and a knife and cut our rectangle from mark to mark like this. Let's do the same with the second rectangle. Now we take a square and lay out our picture. That's it. And we start sewing. We make the first seam unfinished. That is, we sew square to the middle, sewn up to the middle. This method is called an unfinished or open seam. Now we have this side completely attached, and now we sew this side to it, and then one by one we attach this one and this one. And at the end we complete this seam that we left unfinished. Here is the last seam that we did not complete. Now let's finish with it. Starting from here, we complete this seam. Look what a top for a pillow I get. I think it's very beautiful. All strips are swirling and varied. The middle is bright. I deliberately choose a bright middle. I don't know about you, but I like it. And now we only should cut off these triangles and even the block. We cut everything and made a square. Well, then we will need a filler to stitch the top and some piece of fabric from the back side. And then I will stitch this top and sew the back side for the pillow with a zipper. We have already posted lots of videos on how to sew blocks with a zipper. Just follow the link to watch them. Here's what we pulled out our ties. All ties come with such fillers. How can they be used? Everything is simple. You need to sew them together and you will get a pillow filler. Here I've already connected the pieces. Let's take this piece, apply a narrow side here, long side here, and connect them with a zigzag stitch. Parts are easy to connect with a large zigzag of somewhat 5 or 6 mm width and 4 mm step between them, and everything is connected like this to the edge. It comes out very smooth and can be used as a filler for pillows to quilt. Well, look what I got. Here's such a color stitch. I used it on purpose to connect those shortcomings that you have noticed. The block was a bit wavy because we work with silk, which is a light fabric, and I didn't add one more piece of fabric to the block. In my opinion, the situation was improved. Everything is smooth here now. Here is the back side. The zipper and fabric match in color. For the inside, I bought a cotton fabric and it fits very well. Now let's open the zipper and see what we have inside. Everything is clean and neat. For the backside fabric or the stitched blocks, I usually use leftovers from tulle fabric because it's very simple to quilt. It's so smooth and good looking. And here is the second pillow. It's a bit different. I stitched it with such straight lines and got such a geometric pattern. It also looks very beautiful. Center is in a cell. The backside fabric is the same, because these pillows are meant to form a duet. This is how it turns out inside. I hope it is seen. I like the result of working with ties, so don't throw away the ties, but use them. They may give life to something extremely beautiful. Now I say goodbye to you. Subscribe to our channel and wait for new videos. Bye bye!